on the 3 meets, and I told him that we had sent a communication last week, the end of last week, before the end of October, which is what we said in the Portfolio Committee the other day, saying that this is how we think we have concluded, and do you have any comments on this? That came from the vets, it didn't come from us, because the issues are sanitary and phytosanitary matters. And we received only a communication about that yesterday. And there will be a meeting, an engagement with the vets in the course of today. So that meeting is happening anyway. It was set up before we knew that there was going to be this letter from the President to the Speaker. So I think that all in all, we take the letter seriously as a warning. It's a warning that if we don't conclude that this will happen, the warning was made, and we have taken it, as I say, as that. But we also believe that we're pretty close to resolving the sanitary and phytosanitary matters that are outstanding. They are, by, I think, consensus. Everybody I've spoken to, the ambassador, and everybody says that we are very close, tantalizingly close. There's a few outstanding matters of detail. We'll see how far we get, and that's the way it is. As I keep saying, repeatedly keep saying, these are matters between our veterinary authorities. We have, as the DTI and also as the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, we have been facilitating the conversations between our veterinary officials. We are not in a position, even if we wanted to go in there and give them an instruction. That's not the way these processes work. So we have been facilitating the vets to seek an outcome, an agreed outcome that we can all live with. And we will continue to do that, and we'll continue to do that this afternoon. And we will continue to work towards ensuring that the effect of this letter doesn't have to be implemented, and that South Africa continues to benefit from accessing to a government. I think that's about as far as I can go now, and we can take questions. Yeah.
To open up for questions, starting in Cape Town, Linda, will be the first one.
Yes, Minister, a few things, please. The response by the US to the South African proposals, was it like 99% agreeable? What were the issues where they didn't agree? Secondly, it appears throughout this process that GAF has been bungling, and that you, as the figurehead of the process, will have to be the brunt of that bungling, so that you have the DA then making a comment that you don't know what's going on and that you made a big mess. And thirdly, yeah, thanks.
We'll take another 2 questions, Shannon. And then
thank you, Jan for the Sunday Times. Dr. Davies, I have 2 questions which are sort of at cross purposes, because the process seems so unclear. Having covered this for a very long time, I always feel as if it's the discussion of the death. As if our government is always exploding with confidence and then being completely surprised when the Americans do exactly what they said they would do. For instance, in this case, about 2 months ago, there were some hearings which were held by Congress. And it was abundantly clear where this was going. Yet last week you told AGOA that all's on track. How is it that you're being surprised this way? That's my first question. It doesn't say much for the standard of discussion between the 2 countries. It seems as though we are forever being wrong-footed. And my second question is this. Having perhaps gone into this rather hand-handedly and stubbornly, our country, are we now, through the fact that we are forever being reassessed, at the beck and call and almost under the jackboot of the Americans to do with us as they please?
Sorry, I just repeated my food.
okay.
It's about the regionalisation of the infected meat. From what I gather, GAF has been resisting the US demand that their exports be allowed from non-disease states, which all countries around the world allow, but which South Africa is refusing to accept with comment on it.
Wendell, I'm going to take you, I'm going to allow us to respond first, and I'll take you in the next round. Minister?
Okay, well, let me start off by saying that what I understand the outstanding issues are that on the regionalisation of the avian flu, practically everything has been resolved except for something called an exit clause. And the second thing is that there's a matter of salmonella, which is a different thing. Those are the two issues that are outstanding. And in fact, as I said last week, we said on these issues, this is how we propose to conclude. What is your answer? And we didn't get that. So I think that as far as we're concerned, on that specific issue, we think that we have nearly concluded. To tell you the honest truth, Linda, I don't actually give a fig about whether they think I'm competent or not, the DA and so on. I think that the US analogy is probably the one that applies. It says in the US that if President Obama says it's midday, members of Congress will say, who gave you the authority to say so? So I think it's, whatever we say is going to be just the opposite. So I think the real issues are not what our friends in the Portfolio Committee think, but it's actually what the real issues are and what are the issues for the country. Now, I think to come to the Sunday Times, some of the people who have been urging us all along would have wanted us to do exactly what you say. Just do what our interlocutor says. Not think about the interests of the country and where we stand in this. Just as AGOA is so valuable, if they demand something, just jump. That was the mantra we heard from a number of quarters, including our friends in the DA. That's what they were saying. And in fact, what we decided to do was we said no. We said we will not just remove the anti-dumping duty on poultry, because that was the demand initially from members of Congress. Remove the anti-dumping duty in its entirety. We don't consider it to be legally enforced. We said we consider it to be legally enforced. We said let's agree to disagree about that and let's negotiate a quota within the anti-dumping duty. I think that choice was vindicated by the deal that we struck in Paris in June, where we have a quota of poultry that will enter South Africa, that satisfies the US's ambitions to export into our market, and at the same time is something that the local poultry industry may not ideally desire, but can live with. That, I think, is the outcome. That's what trade negotiations are supposed to be about. You don't just say when somebody says jump how high, you actually, what you do is you negotiate. And then we said to them, in part of the agreement in Paris, that we would, as the government, we would ensure that the various regulatory processes to give effect to that quota happen. Now, within the framework of the system that we have in South Africa. As the Minister of Trade Industry, but even as the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, because I do have to say my colleague, Minister Zokwana, and I have engaged on a number of occasions jointly, and we're on the same page. Neither of us can go to the vets, the veterinary authorities of this country, the people who are qualified as vets. I don't know what an avian flu virus looks like, and I don't pretend to be an expert on that, and I don't think that anybody expects me to be that. So we don't go along and say, oh, come off it, this country, that country, the other country accepts it, therefore just, lie over and play dead. We don't play like that. We don't work like that in South Africa. Those vets have got to do their due diligence and satisfy themselves that what is going to be given as a certificate will mean that there is not a risk that the local poultry flock gets infected by avian flu. That's what they have to do. Now, has the process taken a bit longer than we thought? Yes. Have we tried to make it happen more quickly? Yes. So Faisal Ishmael sitting here has been in every single DVZ. He's not a vet either. So he can't sit down there and say, oh, come off it, guys, this or that or the other requirement is not rational, because he's not a vet. It's the vet's call, but he's been there. Can't we do it this way? Can't we do it that way? Can't we help facilitate it? That's the role that we've played. That's the role that we'll continue to play. And I think that's the only role you can expect a Department of Trade to play. But also the Department of Agriculture doesn't directly get in there and tell the vets what to do. I think we need to just kill this one myth, or two, or a couple of myths. On the side of some of the US commentators, I think there's a view that that the veterinary authorities have been given instruction by politicians to play, as the phrase goes, play ropey-dope, to spin this out. No such instruction. In fact, the opposite instruction. We've said we want an agreement. The second part of it is the process in ITAC to administer the quota. That is happening. Faisal is actually the chair of ITAC. Not that affects his judgment, because ITAC has to take an independent position. So we have to, the phrase that comes out from the US when President Obama was here, he called for strong institutions in Africa, not strong men. Neither Minister Zokwane and myself are strong men. We have institutions. And those institutions are not Mickey Mouse institutions either, because the chief veterinary officer, Dr. Molisani, is actually the chairperson, I think it's chair, isn't it? President of the OIE, which is the International Veterinary Association. So he's good enough to be chosen as that. So they're no slouches. And their job is to make sure that when we get US poultry in here, as we do, we get it in such a condition that it doesn't cause sickness to our own flock. And by the way, avian flu could also possibly affect human health. So that's the issue. That's the issue. So we have been trying to continually facilitate that. As I said repeatedly, we believe that we are close. There's a couple of outstanding issues. Whether they get finished today or I don't know. But we would like to see progress. We certainly are aware that if we don't conclude by 60 days from yesterday, then citrus, macadamia nuts and wine will not benefit from AGOA access. But we don't think that's the scenario we're working on. We're working on a scenario that we will conclude and then we will reverse this notice because we will have done what we are expected to have done. So I think it's one of these cases of it's taken longer than we expected, but as far as we are concerned, as the South African government is concerned, that also goes for Minister Zokwane, we are working to implement the quota agreement that we reached in Paris. And as I say repeatedly, I believe that we are better off having that quota agreement than if we had just been asked to do what some people wanted us to do, which is just roll over and die when somebody asks us to do something.
Thank you, Minister. Hold on, again. Just hold on. Do you want to ask a follow-up? Okay, quickly a follow-up.
Yeah, it's actually not a follow-up, it's the second question which wasn't answered, which is what's the communication like between you and the Americans if you're continuously surprised like this, especially when actually listening to them, they've been pretty consistent, if rather strong.
But also follow up for me, please. So, is it correct then that the only outstanding issue is the regionalisation issue?
The Minister will just quickly answer that and then we'll...
No, I said already that most of the regionalisation issues have already been solved. That is supposed to come in something called a poultry trade protocol, something like that. And I said there's one issue outstanding on that as far as we're concerned, that's the exit clause. So as far as we're concerned, most of the substance of the regionalisation, the avian flu, has been solved. What's outstanding is an associated but different issue, which is called salmonella. That's the issue. As far as we're concerned, on most of the others, the beef and the pork, at least the principles are all solved. I don't think that all the certificates have been issued. It's that kind of level of detail that we're at. That's information that we've got. I mean, Faisal can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's basically it. So what's the communication like between us and the US? Well, I mean, we speak quite often. I said already that I had a phone call from Ambassador Froman. When I hear all these things, I mean, there are all kinds of messages to and fro coming through different channels, and some of you pick up all kinds of things. I don't know. We have known. We've known for a very, very long time that there are voices in Congress which are very, very militant on these issues. It's got a lot to do with the constituency system in the United States and the way in which particular influential people, senators and Congress people, are linked to these particular interest groups. That's what it is. We've understood this for quite a considerable amount of time. And as I said already, when this was first presented to us, it was presented to us as why don't you just remove the anti-dumping duty on poultry? Why don't you just, there was the issue with beef was this bovine spongiform encephalitis, this BSE, mad cow disease. And on pork, there were quite a few diseases. And the last issue on pork, because there's quite a few cuts of pork that are already allowed in South Africa, but the ones that were outstanding were shoulders. And why is shoulders an issue? Well, my amateur knowledge has been improved because I know that the lymph gland is in the shoulders. And that's where quite a few of the diseases reside. And, whether the lymph gland is taken out or how it's treated, that's become the issue for that. But as I say, I think that we've, broadly speaking, reached a level of agreement with that. But, there's, I don't want to go into the perceptions about this one way and another. You've heard, I'm sure, not directly, and I'm not going to either, directly perceptions of how the process has gone from various interlocutors on the other side. I mean, we could exchange some of the stories about whether the same people come to the same meetings, whether we receive answers to the correspondence in time, whether the issues are dealt with as they were in the last meeting. I'm not going to do all of that kind of stuff, but it's not been an easy process, and it's been a process which has been driven by, which has involved conversations with veterinary authorities, technical veterinary issues, which, as I keep saying, we have been trying to facilitate because we are committed to implementing the agreement we reached in Paris in June.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, we'll do Wendell, then we'll go to Pretoria for 2 questions and come back again. Wendell?
Minister, is there a sense from the South Africans that phytosanitary has a barrier to trade? Is there a sense that the US are being sort of having double standards? Is that the sense that they are being unnecessarily dependent on the phytosanitary issue that are outstanding?
Thank you, Pretoria. 2 questions from your side, please.
Can I ask a question?
I think, Lisa, we must announce that we've got our Deputy Minister this side, Mzandile Masina, and we've got our DG, is also here, Lionel October, and our DDG Kolona is here, and also DDG Elaine is here from DAF. So without any waste of time, we have questions in Pretoria. We'll start with Shana.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, if I may, could I address a question to Faisal Ismail?
Yeah.
Faisal, I just wanted to be quite honest, because when I interviewed you yesterday morning, I had expressed to you that the U.S. ambassador had indicated to me that within a day or two there would be an announcement that President Obama is going to reduce South Africa's AGOA benefits. And your response to me was that you are the special envoy and you're in daily contact with people in Washington, and if there was any such announcement to be made, you would have been the first to know. And as far as you're concerned, there's no such thing going down the pipeline. So what I wanted to ask you is, are the Americans not playing open cards with you? Or are you, I mean, how honest are these discussions? If you're in discussions with them every day, how did you not know this? Thanks.
Thank you. The US seems to be hardballing on the phytosanitary issues we have with their meat. But apart from that, we just released a deal to re-allow a quota of chicken pieces once the sanitary issues have been set aside. Industry people say that the deal is designed to fail to some extent in that it puts aside 50% of the quota for unspecified HDI companies. There are apparently no black-owned meat importers in South Africa at all. So how does the DTI envisage this to 50% to getting used? Will they support the HDI importers? My second question is, the minister seems to be placing the blame at the door of militant Congress members and vets, but not on what the DTI has actually done. Can he really especially not take blame about what has happened? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew England from the Financial Times. Minister, how damaging would this be for the South African agricultural sector if the suspension was put in place? Does it just affect macadamia nuts, citrus and wine? And how important is the US market for the South African agricultural industry? And finally, is there any concern that this could actually escalate so it would impact on other exports to the US, such as the motor vehicle exports, which is the bulk of South Africa's AGOA exports to the US? Thank you.
John, do you have a question? That is all, Minister.
Basil, do you want to speak first?
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I think it was Shannon who asked the question. Yeah, no, I think when you did call me, we didn't at that stage have any formal communication from the United States. But subsequent to that, I did get a call late afternoon yesterday from the United States, my interlocutors, and I did facilitate a call between Minister Davies and Ambassador Froman, which took place early evening yesterday, during which, as Minister just indicated, he was given advance notice of the press statement that was issued by the United States later yesterday, last evening. I am in daily contact with the U.S. Negotiators, and of course we were aware that the United States did have the various options as it concluded its out-of-cycle review. One of those was to issue a notice like it did, to indicate that if there wasn't a conclusion of all the issues, they could suspend or withdraw concessions made to South Africa in AGOA. Of course, the US had another option, which was to indicate that they're confident that the outstanding issues will be resolved in the next few days, and therefore South Africa has passed the AGOA out-of-cycle review and will be included in AGOA. They chose, they decided. We are, of course, are not part of that discourse and that internal decision. And but having been told about that decision, we can once again confirm that the process is on track. We are concluding the final details. Today, just this afternoon, we will meet again to receive some of the outstanding proposals the United States has to make to us, and those will be considered. And so as far as we're concerned, we're on track. But the US has to do what it has to do in terms of its own process. Thank you.
Okay, let me answer the questions directed at me. And I think maybe it's worth going back a little bit through the narrative and the processes, and then to see how we navigated our way through those. First of all, when the question of AGOA renewal was coming up, it was not certain how long, who was going to be covered. There was a big debate about graduation. There was a big debate about whether or not South Africa, because we have a broader range of use of products, ought to be graduated out. There were all kinds of issues about the comparison with the European Union Trade Development and Cooperation Agreement. We actively entered and engaged in that debate, and we actually put forward a case which we said that strategically the trade relationship between the US and South Africa has been one which is growing, and what AGOA does is it adds a certain proportion of value-added products into what would otherwise have been a typical basket of exports from our side, which have been primary products. That's what we said. Now, I think what we managed to succeed in doing was to knock many of the propositions that could have led to a different outcome that South Africa was not included at all off the table. But in the course of that, it was suggested on the US side that there might be a momentum towards improving AGOA access. We tried to engage in that. That didn't happen. But we were also told that there were these issues in the 3 meets, and we started a process of work around the 3 meets. That's what it basically was. And we said we would put our industries together to knock out a deal. Now that was what we said. Now I think that choice was vindicated by the outcome of the agreement in Paris, because as I said earlier on, the demand originally was just remove the anti-dumping duty, and then we would have exposed the local industry to whatever came in. It's important to understand in poultry that there is a surplus of brown meat in the developed world. They eat more white meat products. They have a surplus. that product is practically unsaleable in their markets, and they look to export it all over the world. What we haven't said, and what we needed to stress, is that there are also SPS regulations in the United States that stop our white meat going there. We have put those on the table. They don't have, and it's part of this process now. When we have concluded this, we will be going back to the United States and saying, you said you would look at this issue, we expect you to be following through on that. That's a matter of interest and concern to us. But I think that that was what we went through. As I keep saying, and I say it again, the issues that have been delaying us, because we've been well aware of their indicative timetables. They've written us letters and told us there's this and this and this going on, which is why at the end of last week, we sent them the communication we did. We said we think it's done before the end of October. We think it's done. And this is how we think it's done. And if you have any comments, we're happy to entertain those. And we got the answer yesterday, was it? Day before? Yesterday. That was it. So there is now going to be the further round of discussions. Look, I think if the president of the government thinks that somebody has messed up in my place, well, he's welcome to replace me. If I think that is going to assist the process, I'm welcome to go. I'm happy to go. But I don't believe that is actually the fundamental issue. I think the fundamental issue is that we have a process underway, and that process underway is dealing with some technical issues which are in the competence of people that are responsible for those technical processes, and that we have been facilitating those as much as we've done. I'm actually happy with my record. I'm very happy with my record. My record is one where we have worked to accommodate and to put within a doable proposition the provision of access into the US and into the South African market of US chicken, doing it in such a way that it is livable with for the industry. We've had to make a concession we didn't have to make before under the previous AGOA. We've done it in a way that is doable, and I think that that is not a record that one needs to be ashamed about at all. So that's my view about that. And the question about the HDIs, there is some work that's been done around that. There are some people in place who are ready to do that, but actually the quota also does allow flexibility around that. The quota regulations will allow flexibility around that. So it's not a question that the US is going to be told, oh, we haven't got all the HDIs in place, therefore you can't send the stuff. It's not going to be like that. But there is work sort of already happening around that. Thanks.
Okay, we'll Lucanio, and then Paul, and then Donald, and then we'll see if we have another round of questions.
Thank you. Lucanio from the SABC. Just essentially one question directed to the Minister. So you're saying that the vets have essentially taken a lot longer than what you guys had anticipated. Now we know that we've got 59 days in which to conclude this thing. Have you been in touch with them, and is there some sort of deadline to then say, okay guys, by this time we need to essentially be done with this thing, so that you can then tie up any loose end that's then outstanding after that to be able to make the 60-day deadline that the Americans have put in place? So just essentially, have you given the vets a deadline? Thank you.
Good day, Minister. Paul Vecchiato, Bloomberg. First of all, just to explain or clarify on what you mean by an exit clause. Secondly, about 2 years ago, you got INTEC and poultry producers pressured government to increase tariffs for imported poultry, which did cause an increase in chicken prices. At the time we said, well, we have to save jobs, so people have to pay a bit more for their chicken. Did that plan work out? Are there more people being employed? Secondly, I'll just leave it there for the time. Oh, sorry. The third question was, just remember, the ruling party sort of had a long thing about South Africa's, or their view on South Africa's relations, especially with the Western world. Will these AGOA negotiations and the hiccups we've seen here sort of reinforce the view that the ruling party is anti-Western? Thank you very much.
Donald?
Yes, Donald Presley. Minister, these things do confuse me, these trade deals, very much. But the question that was asked in Pretoria regarding the impact on the motor industry and the citrus industry, I don't think was answered. And do you view this as unfair that a problem in one area of the AGOA negotiations that can have this strange ripple effect in threats to the big sectors in South Africa? I mean, isn't that fundamentally unfair?
Can I just add, Janyan and Linda, just quickly one question each.
I'll keep it short by 2 ones. The first, Mr. Ishmael, it does seem that you were somewhat surprised. Would that be a fair assumption by the President's announcement? And to our Minister, have you taken it up with the President of our country, and if so, what was his reaction?
Minister, the strong arm tactics by the US, are they doing that to extract any further concessions? I mean, are we going to now fall over on the last outstanding issues because they have made these threats? And if you can just explain how the semolina contaminant, salmonella.
Sorry, Minister, can I just add one more?
SABC. Minister, just one question from me. What is likely to happen if the 60 days expired and you still have the outstanding issues that you've been ironed out? That's it, Minister?
Okay. Have we been in touch? Have we been in touch with the vets? Yes, end of last week, I participated in a phone conference with the vets, and we got a report from the vets, and it was on the basis of that discussion that we made the proposal that we subsequently implemented, which was to go and tell the US this is how we think we've concluded on these matters and wait for their comments on that. There was that discussion. Minister Zokwana, I believe, is going to have a discussion with him before the meeting this afternoon. So there is a constant engagement. I think they are aware of the timeframes and the deadlines, and certainly we make them constantly aware of all of that. That is the role we play as the facilitators. What does a facilitator do? A facilitator tries to get the two sides to reach an agreement, an accord. That's the role that we have been playing. The exit clause is about, in any international agreement, when does the thing expire? I don't know, maybe Faisal, I don't think we need to go into the details of it, but that's what it is. It's that. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as my information is, as a non-vet, that the substantive matters about regionalisation and avian flu have all been settled, and that this is what is remaining in the protocol that will deal with avian flu. Salmonella is a disease that occurs when the stuff starts to go a bit rotten, and not just in chicken, it's in other foodstuffs and stuff like that. And there's a separate protocol, or a separate understanding on salmonella. It wasn't part of the original discussion, but was raised on their side. So that's the issue that's there. I didn't come with the figures of the poultry sector and the tariffs and everything, but just to say that the point I was making about the poultry industry worldwide and the different consumption patterns and the different trading patterns and how this is not, free trade. This is a specific model because it's derived from that. I think that what I know and understand is that the industry is more secure because we've done that. But I haven't got the job figures to be able to explain it. And actually, if we hadn't done that, they wouldn't have been in a position to be able to agree to 65,000 tonnes from the United States. We'd have had vocal and vociferous opposition coming from the South African poultry producers. That I'm absolutely certain of. So I think that tariff increase was part of our ability to be able to. And by the way, that tariff will be enforced on the poultry imports that come from the United States. Only the anti-dumping duty that's covered by the quota. Is this moving away from the Western world? No. We've argued. In fact, we said to the United States on a number of occasions, because they had tried to say, they had AGOA, first AGOA was 15 years. And I think probably one of the things that everybody needs to understand about it, maybe we make it clearer, it's a non-reciprocal set of trade preferences. So there's not an agreement in place. They say, under their own legislation, with their own decisions, that we offer access for the following products duty-free into the United States for AGOA eligible countries, and then there are various criteria for whether you're eligible or not. And then there's a regular review, and there's an out-of-cycle review. And because we hadn't concluded all the poultry issues, they weren't confident necessarily, we were subject to the out-of-cycle review. And it is that report which was the report that the President submitted yesterday. That's what it is, it's been the out-of-cycle review. So we've been subject to one immediate review, and it's been based on these three needs. But I mean, we've been saying that the US is in competition in Africa. They're in competition with a number of people. AGOA gives them goodwill. We've got lots of American companies in South Africa. We have been saying, if we all go pear-shaped up on this, that the goodwill and the relationship that we have, it may not be quite as rosy as it would, not on our side, but it may end up being not quite as goodwill engendering as it could be. But we don't think we're there. Let me say that I didn't really answer the question. This notice talks about agricultural products. I don't say anything else about agricultural products. What it tells us is if we don't, 60 days from yesterday, if we don't get them to reverse it, and as I said, I don't know, I haven't seen his statement, the press statement, but the US trade representative said, because I said, have you put that in, that it's reversible? He says, not in the notice. He said he put it in the trade, in the press statement. I don't know if it is or not, because I haven't seen that, but that's what he said. I got him to say that explicitly, that this is reversible. That if we reach the agreement on the issues that are outstanding, then they withdraw this, and then we don't have any interruption for these agricultural products. But that's at the moment, that's what they do. If we don't finish it in 60 days' time, then there will be an interruption. Now, I haven't got with me, I haven't looked at all the implications and everything, because there's GSP, General System of Preferences. We don't know what the difference, I don't know what the difference is offhand between the GSP tariff on wine and on the AGOA and macadamia nuts. I don't know what all of those are, but it may be significant, it may not be a total prohibition, but it'll be slightly worse terms or very worse terms. I don't know at this point in time. That's what would happen. And look, I think that we need to. I think blaming Faisal here for what he knew and didn't know. I was contacted by one of the journalists who's in the audience here and told me that the US were going to take us out. So I immediately put through a call to Michael Fromm. I couldn't get through to him. I ended up speaking to the ambassador. I said, is that what you said? And he says, no. So what do we say? I mean, we're going to be taken out. And then later on, through Faisal, then the next day we get told, yes, there will be. So I mean, what do we do? And actually the rumor at that time was that there would be a different notice. I'm not going to go into what was told us, but it would have very different implications than this one. So I mean, what do? I mean, when we have a rumor, we don't. With all due respect to all of you sitting here, we don't intermediate through you and say, well, this one says that, and the other one. We can't ask them. What is the message to us? And then yesterday I was told Ambassador Froman will tell you. So that was it. That's how we communicate. And have I communicated to the President? Well, I haven't had an opportunity to talk to him directly, but I've certainly spoken to his office. I've alerted him to his office that this is what happened. I told him the story about that. Look, I think the way this is unfolded has also got quite a lot to do with the fact that this is this non-reciprocal arrangement, and that it wasn't the same terms as we had before last year. The issues of the meats and the poultry and all that. The anti-dumping duty on the poultry has been enforced since 2002, isn't it? 2000. In fact, it predates AGOA, actually. We got into AGOA having put in place the anti-dumping duty. That's what happened. We got into AGOA having already started the process of negotiating the Trade Development Cooperation Agreement with the European Union. The things are different. Things are a bit different. And these issues came much more sharply on the agenda. We've tried to respond to them and tried to negotiate the best deal we could for South Africa, bearing in mind the jobs in the poultry sector, the jobs elsewhere, the value of AGOA and all of that. That's what we tried to do. And as I keep saying, you can shout and scream and yell as much as you like at me, but we do not have a system in South Africa. And I think if you think about it, you'll be glad we don't have a system in South Africa, where the minister can walk in and say to technical people, do it, and I don't care what you say, I think you must do it, because, on this case it might be for the general interest of the country, but it could also be something else as well. And I think you'd be glad it doesn't work that way, if you think about it. So the vets have got to take their own decisions on the basis of their professional knowledge, which is why we employ them, which is why we employ people like who are veterinary people, who are actually quite well-respected veterinary people, and you don't have Rob Davies sitting down there and saying whether there's any risk of salmonella or avian flu or something like that. Because I've got some other view of this. I think you'll be glad that that is in fact the way we work in this country. Sure. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go to Pretoria for their last rounds at all.
Okay, we'll take Andrew and John.
I was just trying to follow up on my questions, and I guess the Minister has kind of answered them now.
Okay, John?
The Minister has answered several questions, but I'm still slightly confused, Minister, about this issue of escalation. Are we only talking about a few agricultural products, or does the threat to South African exports being excluded from AGOA stretch beyond the agricultural sector, for instance, into the automotive sector?
That is all, Lisa.
Okay, let me just take Cape Town then and round it off. Paul and then Bianca.
Minister, Paul from Bloomberg again. Just quickly, so they promised in October the 15th deadline for a call for go. Now we know there's been, are there any other deadlines in that we have to meet within the 60 days? And will South Africa at least try and meet them? Thank you very much.
Bianca?
Thank you very much, Vianney Green from SABC. Minister, let me ask you a pointed question. Any negotiation process involves give and take. Is South Africa willing to make concessions in order to avert the threat by the Americans?
Linda?
Sorry, you might have answered it, Minister. So there hasn't been bungling and delays, unnecessary delays on DEF's part, and a lack of communication of what was going on from them to you. Okay.
That's the last round of questions, Minister.
I think I'm not going to speculate on anything. I'm just going to say that I'm talking to the first question from Pretoria. The notice tells us now that if we do not conclude the issues in the 3 meets in 60 days from yesterday, they will suspend access for agricultural products. That's what it says. I'm not going to speculate on what they may do after that, if we don't do it, or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, and I've said it repeatedly, we think that the outstanding issues can be resolved in well under 60 days. Well under 60 days. We think we are close. That is what we're working around, and that is the deadline that I think that we have. Now, there were other deadlines. They were told to us as deadlines. Deadlines arising not from anything other than their own processes of having to make a report on the out-of-cycle review. By the way, the out-of-cycle review, people threw millions of other things into that. All sorts of other things were raised and so on, and people asked for us to be, most people, by the way, who made the submission said that we shouldn't be removed. But 1 or 2 did make suggestions that we should be removed. They were the Pork Association. But other issues were thrown into that. But the issues came down to, we were told, the 3 meets, and we were told on these deadlines. We made a best endeavour effort to try to meet them, and I don't think we're far off them. That's what I would want to say. Then on the question of concessions, yes, there are concessions all the way through. The point about I was making in the beginning, this is a non-reciprocal process, but what we've had to do is to inject a process of bargaining and negotiation around the access. That includes a set of concessions that are made around the veterinary regulations. That is what it does entail. So the vets have been amending certificates, discussing rules, discussing how they can be satisfied that, as Linda raised it, if there is avian flu in some part of the United States, that we don't get chickens coming with avian flu into South Africa. Those have been the issues. And how are the different procedures working and operating, the different models in place, and how do we come to an agreement? That's what we've been discussing for all of these times. Has there been bungling by DAF? I think I would say to you that what I repeated, that DAF and the Minister of Agriculture and myself have been on the same page, and there is an official from DAF, I believe she's up in Pretoria there, Elaine Alexander, who's been working with Faisal in facilitating the discussion. The discussion has involved the veterinary authorities of both countries. The veterinary authorities have got their own dynamics, and we as government departments, actually also on the other side, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative has from time to time facilitated their guys as well. Vets are vets, and they've got their own mandate, their own way of operating, their own considerations, their own concerns, and they are charged with ensuring, if we find that tons of unsafe products start entering South Africa, who are you going to shout at? Well, you can shout at me, and you can shout at the Minister of Agriculture, but also someone's going to shout at the vets. So they've got their responsibilities as well.
Victoria, can we conclude the briefing? Are there any other questions from this side? Okay, you happy?
Not for now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's all right.
My camera is the camera. Okay, well, I've got my 5 minutes.
That's what I'm using.
You really want me this? Also, wrong one Sorry about that. Oh, I got flights and one.
Put it on mic at the back. Excuse me.
Clyde.
So,
give us to turn this way. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine, ma'am. I'm sorry. Thanks very much. And then just